Welcome to Books and Booze, a bookish and wine and juice podcast. Whether you're a fan of books, wine, or true crime, this is the place for you. Pour yourself a glass of whatever you enjoy and enjoy the show. Cheers! So on this episode of Books and Booze, one of our loyal listeners, Natalie Cuddington, the author of Chloe Diller, which is a book that broke my heart, she asked me the question, what makes a book a 5-star read for me?
Hi, I'm Nat from the YouTube channel Pickle Hearts Books, and my question is, what makes a 5-star book for you? I always really enjoy asking this question to people because it's always different for every person. And what's interesting about it is sometimes it's different for the same person, but depending on the type of book or the genre they're reading from. So what makes a 5-star book for me are two main things usually: strong characters and a world that I wish I could be a part of. For strong characters, it's people who have relatable stories or deep or interesting or heartfelt backstories, funny dialogue, characters who I feel like I could be friends with or wish I could be friends with, characters I find myself thinking about when I'm not reading the book, or characters that I'm rooting for. Basically, if they feel real to me, if they're written deep and well enough that they feel like real people to me, that is a big indicator that the book is going to be 5 stars for me. And the other thing that really makes a 5-star book for me is a world that I would love to be a part of. So a world with rich descriptions, a world that I can see myself walking through the streets of and smell the scents of, a world that I feel like I can be a part of or want to be a part of with the characters who feel real to me. So that is what usually makes a 5-star book for me. Thank you so much, Jade, for answering my question, and I can't wait to hear what everybody says.
So, while I want to give my own answer, I also asked a couple of my friends and family. My first port of call was my dad, and this is what he had to say.
First off, what are you drinking?
Coke.
Ha ha ha. With whiskey.
Maybe.
And I am having box white wine in a mug. Because no one loves me enough to buy me red wine. I got asked a question from one of my listeners saying, what to you makes you give a book a 5-star rating? So 5 out of 5 stars. I know you don't have Goodreads, which is a platform where you can review books, but in your head, what makes a book a 5-star read for you?
A book I don't want to put down until I get right to the very end.
Mm-hmm. But what kind of emotions does it?
It's normally a thriller, so it would be me trying to work out the plot and the end line and the result, and waiting for the twist, because there usually is one in a good thriller. So yeah, but I also like fairly factual books. I like the Da Vinci Code, and I like all of the Dan Brown stuff really, so I don't know. That is a thriller, but it's got a lot of history in it as well. I do like the history.
Mm-hmm. And what makes you not give a book a 5-star? Like what about you? What about books annoys you?
Just drivel. I mean, some books are just literally drivel, and a lot of this, I suppose you'd call it supposedly light-hearted fiction, but with a teenage plot to it, just really get on my wick.
Mm-hmm. So what's the best book you've read lately?
Lately, I'm going to say I read the Forsyth Saga, which was an excellent book.
By who?
I think it's E.M. Forrester.
What was it
Classic,
about?
absolute classic. It's about a family basically who are wealthy and well done, but it's an excellent historical novel set in the Victorian age, and it's about the wars and the rifts within the family and the different things that happen and different business dealings, etc. And it's a very, very riveting read. But probably the most recent, because I'd not read it, and everybody speaks about it, was, as I've previously mentioned, the Da Vinci Code. And that was an excellent book.
Didn't you say something about how you've been reading Dan Brown books and it's been giving you nightmares?
No.
Yes, you did.
I'm a dad, I don't get nightmares.
But it has, right?
No.
He's grinning at me.
Give me some funny dreams, but nothing that's frightened me, obviously.
And right now you are reading In Cold Blood by Truman Capote.
Yep.
And?
Based on, Truman Capote was a journalist, and he decided to write this novel based on a newspaper article he read, about a shortish article, but it was about a family that were basically slaughtered out on a farm back in the 1950s, whatever, early 50s, and it's a genuine story. And so he decided to write a factual novel based on that story, the story of the Clutters. And it's quite oldie-worldy in its writing style, but the story is absolutely gripping. And Truman Capote's storytelling, the way he does it, is superb. And I'm not even halfway through, and I'm busting a gut to get to the end.
Good. Yeah, I bought that book. One of the few books I bought for myself in Australia when I got given books for free from all the very kind publishers, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm very excited to read it.
Well, it'll be worth it. So it's a worthwhile read. But as I say, it's a true crime novel. I mean, a lot of the people's identities and everything have been obviously changed to protect the innocent, but in large, the whole novel is based upon interviews of people who were involved at and around the time.
So he
spent 6 to 7 years researching the novel before he wrote it. So
you were probably just under halfway through, and from what you've just said about busting to get to the end, it will be a 5-star read for you.
Pretty much, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
To know. Excited to read it. Thank you for your input, Dad.
My input. I don't have nightmares.
Then I met up with a couple of friends in the pub, and they shared their opinions and kind of went on a little bit of a cookbook tangent.
Renee, what are you busy drinking?
Red wine.
Me too, Chels. To you, what makes a book a 5-star read? 5 out of 5.
Unputdownable. Keep me up all night. Stay in my head for days and days and days and leave me bereft when I finish it.
Perfect. And what is your favourite genre?
Mostly thrillers, but I do enjoy a good political story.
What are you reading now?
I'm rereading all of my Terry Pratchett's.
Ah. Do you read them in a particular order?
Never.
And I'm reading Jamie Oliver.
You're reading Jamie Oliver. He's just got a new cookbook out, I think.
Crap.
Yes.
It's crap.
He's amazing.
No, I didn't say he was crap. I said the book is crap.
Oh.
The new book.
Okay.
Too many pictures, not enough words. The same when I did the one on Italy. That was the same. Too many pictures, not enough words. Not enough recipes.
Yeah.
And there's a...
What's the new book? What is the theme?
I can't remember now.
Vegetarian.
Yeah, veggie, vegan and vegetarian,
Yum.
and he's a red meat man, you know. Always has been a red meat man.
Well, that's kind of cool though. He's branching out.
No, he's trying to make money.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast, guys.
People don't change. Recipes do not change the spots like that.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast programming.
And we're not sorry.
I'm Harmony.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're Rebel Girls Book Club.
We're here to take an intersectional feminist approach to books from all over the spectrum.
Bestsellers? We've got you covered.
That one book from English class you hated while you read, but you can't forget?
We've got that too. Comic books, nonfiction, it's all right here.
So grab your tea, grab your blanket, and cue up your favorite podcast app of choice. Let's get rebellious about your new favorite reads.
So, what makes a book a 5-star, like 5 out of 5 stars for you?
Oh, that's quite easy.
Yes.
Yeah, sure it is.
You're a writer as well.
Was I?
You are, right? Or you were?
Well, I do columns.
Columns.
Yeah. Now, if you pick up a book and you can't put it down, and when you're forced to put it down for whatever reason, You can't wait to pick it up and turn the next page or go back 3 pages to get back into the swing of the things.
Yeah.
Then you're into a 4 to 5 star book as far as your reading likes are concerned. A Day of the Jackal is a classic example.
By who?
That was by, what's his name? Day of the Jackal? Famous, made a movie out of it and everything. It was in the 70s. Anyway, we Google that. It just escapes my mind at the moment. Other books that are very interesting, 5 star. If you're interested in a topic and it's covering your interest, that's different, that's educational.
Yeah, it
that's
depends
like,
on the genre.
exactly.
Like there's some books that are non-fiction, self-help that I think are 5 stars, and then there's gory, thriller, true crime books that are also 5 stars.
They're, you know, something that you're enjoying reading and you want to carry on reading. I picked up a book by Wilbur Smith called Assegai, and it was based in East Africa, Kenya, and it took me about 3 weeks to read 30 pages. So on the star rating that you're giving, I would put that. I didn't even finish it, get to the end of it, so I can't rate it wholly, but its interest level rate was 1%. It was 1 star,
Wow.
2 star. And the reason of that, he made a shocking technical mistake in writing. They described a range of hills outside Nairobi, which is called the Ngong Hills, as hills covered in coffee at the base of the hills. Now, as far as fact is concerned, that's like saying that wonderful mountain in Cape Town, Table Mountain, covered with sugar cane down at the bottom. So as soon as you read an error like that, although Wilbur Smith is very sharp with where he gets his facts from, you know, with his Egyptian background and stuff like that, his books. So as soon as you come across something like that, that's factually, totally, utterly false, you lose interest.
Okay. Yeah, factual. Like the first page in J.P. Delaney's book, The Perfect Wife, where he was describing, I think it was somewhere in India or something, and he got the culture wrong.
Oh, yeah,
according to someone.
According to that one girl on YouTube.
Yeah. So, yeah, that does definitely affect it. Thank you for your input. What are we all drinking? I'm having a glass of
Are you
red
recording
wine.
that too?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a podcast called Books and Booze.
I know, Leonard told me.
So, what are you drinking?
About what?
What are you drinking?
Oh, thinking. I thought I said, what are you thinking?
What are you drinking?
I am drinking Castle. It's the only draft that I can afford. The other one I prefer, they don't have. And the other one, which is very nice, which is a home brew, craft beer, is too expensive.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, Day of the Jackal was Frederick Forsyth.
Of course.
Frederick who?
Frederick Forsyth.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
That one got 4.3 stars out of 5 on Google Reviews.
Or did you just pick it up?
I did.
4 out of 5, did it?
Yeah, 4.3 out of 5.
Apparently.
50 Shades of Grey
What's it? 50 Shades of Grey.
by E.L. James.
Yes. Now that was a world super seller because it appealed.
And the writing sucked.
Exactly. Because the content matter appealed to the erotic thoughts of the majority of women in the world.
It's like the first book that was the first of its kind. It was something a bit more daring and dangerous and fun.
Correct?
But I must say that as the books go along, it gets a little bit more thrillerish and has a bit of a suspense element to it, which is enjoyable.
Then she's mixed all that together. As I say, I don't read and I wouldn't have read that. But that is another reason for popularity.
Exactly. And I believe that E.L. James comes from a screenwriter background.
Possibly. A friend of mine wrote a book, 2 books in fact. One was on rhinos, the disappearance of the rhinos, and it was called Saving the Queen. It was about rhino poaching, and one particular rhino was known as the Queen in the Kruger Park.
Okay.
And the other one was A Gift from Allah, which is all about an atom bomb which is exploded by ISIS-type people in the Channel.
Okay.
You can imagine what damage that would do in the tunnel that goes between the United Kingdom and France and the continent. Have an atom bomb there and the low-lying lands around. Can you imagine that for a tsunami or a tidal wave? Anyway, he got hold of a local publisher in Cape Town, Jonathan Ball.
Oh yes,
To be
I know
quite,
them.
frank. And Jonathan said, Nick, I love it. I can't do a gift from Allah. They'll be after you, they'll hang you. Like that guy who wrote that book in Iran, and he ended up in Denmark and escaping. He said, I can't do the rhino, although it's topical and all that. Bring me something with sex. And I'll print volumes of it. That was his answer. In other words, what sells?
Yeah.
If anyone has any other answers as to what makes a book a 5-star read for you, please can you get in touch with me, because I'd love some different answers. As you can kind of see, all those answers were pretty similar. I mean, some people flat out refuse to give a book a 5-star rating, ever. There's no way a book could be perfect, right? Everything has a flaw somewhere. Nothing in life is perfect. So what is that distinct thing in a book that evokes such emotion that you just have to award it a 5-star read? To me, it's a book that resonates with you long after you put it down. You catch yourself thinking about it years later. I mean, so many books are forgettable. That may be harsh, but it's true. So when a book stays with you, whether it be an overall message that the book is giving you, or a plot twist that really blows your mind, or even if it's a certain character that you just can't get out of your head, that you just connected with so much, to me, that's when you know that there's something special bound in that book. A 5-star book can be different for absolutely everyone. I mean, one person might absolutely adore a book, and another thinks it's the biggest pile of rubbish that they've ever wasted their time on. I mean, a book can be such a powerful thing. A book can make you cry. For example, Cheryl Strayed's book, Tiny Beautiful Things. I ugly cried in that book. I sobbed my heart out. I mean, a book can make you angry, like Asking for It by Louise O'Neill. A book can make you hungry, and I think there's no better words than of my friend Renee, who recently decided that she would trade her wedding dress for a photograph of a lamb chop.
In Nigel Slater's book Appetite, he goes into great detail about lots of simple dishes, and it is an absolute fantastic read cover to cover. But in that book is the most beautiful photograph of a lamb chop that I've ever seen, and I would happily replace my wedding photograph with that picture.
A book can break your heart, it can make you fall in love, it can leave you breathless, like Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. That book was outstanding to me. I have never been quite so enamored and just like flying through the pages, like having to figure out what was going to happen next. A book can even make you feel nostalgic. Books can give you so many emotions, and they are such beautiful things. Sometimes books can even save your life. They saved mine. When I lost my fiancé a couple of years ago, I was going through a world of hurt. I decided to turn to books, and getting lost in other lives and worlds through fiction really helped me. I forgot about my problems, even if it was just for a few hours when I had a chance to pick up a book. It's more a feeling than something concrete. It has to make me have an emotional connection. That is from Read the Right Act, right with a W-R-I-T-E. So you should go give her a follow. Her Instagram's incredible, and she's, very, very well read. Thanks to everyone who contributed, and to Natalie Cuddington for your question.
Sometimes your life changes forever because of sticky funnel cakes. Sometimes a Facebook comment gives you a glimpse at one of the most powerful and invisible forces on Earth. Sometimes an app tells you to take a chance, and you fall madly in love. All of these stories are true. They're just a few of the incredible stories we share on our podcast, Choose Love. We pull back and look at the big, universal idea of love and zoom in on the rich details of love stories. Fanny packs that turn into forever, engagements in long johns and turtlenecks, and a disappearing chocolate bunny. There are so many ways we can choose to respond to the world around us as we go throughout our day. But we hope this podcast encourages you to always choose love. You'll tune in to hear an uplifting story. You'll leave knowing a little more about yourself and the everyday magic of falling in love. Take what you need. These stories belong to each of us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Now moving on to Busey Banter. As I mentioned in my previous episode, the finale to season 1, I have been having a bit of a struggle reading as much as I usually do lately because life's been bloody busy. But I did just finish Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill, and I wanted to talk about it. This, to me, it is the perfect book for a book club because it can spark off so many fascinating debates. It's a book that I could talk about for hours. It's a book that's been compared to Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, and I see why. It's a YA dystopian novel, and it's set in a future where women are engineered for the sole purpose of satisfying men. They're brought up and trained in schools run by chastities, which are basically like nun-like, non-sexualized females. For 16 years, they're in this school before they are ready to be released to their appropriate third. And a third is they can fit into one of three categories. Either they could be a companion, which is basically a wife and a son bearer to an inheritant, a male, or they could become a concubine, which is basically a sex slave or a prostitute, or they could become a chastity, which means that they would never leave the school. Instead, they would help to train up the next year's Eves to be prepared for the next round of inheritance. So Only Ever Yours is a book that follows the current girls in their final year of training, and it's them leading up to the ceremony, which is where they will be put into their appropriate third, either companion, concubine, or chastity. This book has so many unique and interesting qualities. For instance, women don't get capital letters starting with their name, and that's to show their inferiority to men. The book really magnifies so many issues that young women face today, and it really shows you just how toxic life today can be. It's really dark, super disturbing, and it portrays the pressure that females feel when it comes to needing to be perfect. It really highlights the way that we constantly judge and belittle each other, while simultaneously it still shows us that we are constantly comparing ourselves to others and judging and belittling ourselves. It shows you how contradictory certain rules are. Like, if you have sex before marriage, you're labelled a slut, but if you don't, then you're a boring, frigid prude. Fat means you're ugly, skinny means you're pretty, but don't let your bones protrude too much because then you're just not desirable at all. You can have friends, but they can turn your backs on you in an instant. This book is really just showing us how everything in a female's life is a war between finding this non-existent balance. Only Ever Yours put me in a seriously bad headspace. It's riddled with triggers, self-loathing, addiction, eating disorders, and as someone with body dysmorphia, I really had to pace myself with this book and know when to put it down because it really crept up on my insecurities. Louise O'Neill, the author herself, she's got a history of anorexia and bulimia, and I only found that out after I put the book down, which I found really fascinating. There's this huge focus on target weight and how to eat within this book, and it really has you looking at what you put into your body while you're reading it. Like, while I was munching on my staple salt and vinegar crisps and sipping on a glass of wine, the girls in this book were slurping like cucumber soup or something ridiculous like that. Like, it made me very self-conscious about everything that I was doing in my life, and obviously poking my podgy tummy, which has grown a lot, and I need to go on a diet and exercise, but anyway, I blame the wine and pasta and my lack of self-control, but at least I'm happy. Anyway, back with the book. Not one character in this book was likeable. Not even the main love interest. And, I mean, usually, if you have listened to my podcast before where I've natter on about books, usually I quite like that in a book where there isn't a likeable character. But here, I was practically begging for some sort of enjoyable moment or something or someone to just make me smile just once. I felt no sympathy for the main character. I mean, in fact, she annoyed the hell out of me. But then again, I know so many ladies just like Frida in this book. So Frida's the main character. And she is... How do I describe her? Like, Louise O'Neill crafted Frida's character perfectly. She's this codependent, desperate, weak little girl thirsty for popularity. I really saw my old self in her, the self that I was when I was in school getting bullied and begging for acceptance. And I think that's what made this such a harrowing read for me, because it made me remember myself growing up, which is not really something I want to remember. I mean, perhaps it won't evoke such emotions with you. Perhaps you were one of the cool kids in school. I mean, I wasn't. So, for someone like me, I know how much those days in school hurt, so it was a really tough read. Anyway, moving on. I really wanted to dive more into the chastities and male psyche in this book. Like, while the book is predominantly all about the struggles that young women tackle on a daily basis, it does briefly touch on the struggles that others face too, and I wish that O'Neill had touched more on those hardships. As mentioned earlier, this is YA, young adult, and there were parts in this book that really made me cringe, but then again, the characters are 16-year-olds, so it was well done for who it's targeted towards. I guess at almost 30, I did at times feel that this book was a little bit too young for me, but yet something still kept me turning the pages. I mean, despite my less than positive review, I'm sorry, I do believe that this book is so important and incredibly eye-opening. I'd honestly be surprised if it doesn't become required reading in schools in the near future. It's a story with a message, not a solution, and as long as you know that going in, I really don't think you'll be disappointed. However, one last thing. The ending. Don't worry, no spoilers, as always. In a way, I understand how right the ending was in this book, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens, don't worry, but there is no sugarcoating in this book, which I appreciate. There's no happily ever after, which I also appreciate, because life isn't all sunflowers and roses and rainbows and unicorns pissing out some funny multicolored shit. But, I mean, after such a morbid read, no matter how prevalent it was really deflating, and I'm in a bit of a book hangover now, because I just don't know what to do with myself. I need a book with a really strong female character to boost me back up now again, I think. Anyway, so that's my book review. Other things that I have been feeding my mind with is I watched a new zombie apocalypse movie called The Dead Don't Die, starring Bill Murray, and it was bizarre. I mean, Bill Murray, he's so well known for his dry sense of humor, and this movie definitely has that. And it also stars Tilda Swinton, who is some kind of samurai, mortician, Scottish, crazy UFO thing. It was just a very odd book. Not a book. It was just a really odd movie. And at the end of it, I was just like, why did I watch this? There was a little bit of gore in the beginning, but yeah, I think the best part about the whole movie was pretty much how the zombies still wanted things that they had when they were alive. So they would be like holding their phones and going, Wi-Fi, or Siri, and they would be wanting coffee and Chardonnay. But I mean, that was funny, and there was a bit of social commentary, but overall, would I recommend it? No. I can, however, highly recommend The Office. I think I'm on season 5 now. It's crazy how fast we're flying through that. And my boyfriend asked me the other day who my favourite character in The Office, the American version, is. And honestly, I have no idea. Like, I think it has to be Michael, the main character. He's just really funny. But then I asked Rachel from Books in the Freezer. She's a Canadian podcaster, and she said Dwight. So if you have a favourite character in The Office, if you watch that, let me know who your favourite character is. I don't know, there's so many subplots, and everyone has their own little story going on, but all of them are kind of annoying to me, yet somehow I still find myself really enjoying the show, which is odd. My next episode will be out on October 1st, one of my favourite months because, Halloween. Among my bookish episodes, stay tuned for some unnerving true crime cases. If there's any cases specifically that you'd like covered, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I don't understand. Everything I did for her. When Regan Penn discovers that a long-term boyfriend has been cheating on her with over 8 women, she packs her bags and leaves the sunny island in Spain that she had called home for over a year. She returns to South Africa, where she is given the chance to start over in life, reassemble herself. Now is her time to be selfish, find a new career, get a home of her own, become whoever she wants to be. But when her best friend, Peyton, is brutally murdered, Regan is forced to put her life on hold to take responsibility for her friend's 13-year-old daughter, Harley. As the police battle to solve the murder of Peyton and her unborn child, Regan becomes convinced that her godchild is not the sweet, innocent little girl everyone seems to think that she is. Could Harley have been so consumed by her jealousy and fear of not being the epicenter of her mother's universe that it led to murder? If so, is Regan safe in her own home? It Was You by Jade Lee Wright, the host of Books and Booze, is available to purchase on Amazon in both paperback or Kindle form. Thanks for listening to Books and Booze. You can find us on Instagram under Books Booze Podcast, or alternatively, boho_bookworm. We're also on Twitter under Books Booze Pod. We're also on Patreon if you would like to support us by donating as little as $1 a month. If you're looking for a free way to support us, please leave us a 5-star review. As always, it's been a pleasure. Happy reading and drink responsibly.